I work full-time freelance as a writer. So I'm hired to do sometimes a film screenplay, sometimes TV scripts, sometimes ghostwriting, sometimes novels, sometimes theatre stuff, and sometimes I run workshops, writing workshops, which I do run colleges and universities. So on a day-to-day basis, because I'm freelance, I don't have a boss. I may have producers or directors who tell me, we want you to do this, 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 but I never wake up and have to go into an office. I wake up, so I'll give you an example of a day-to-day basis of that. Wake up, I then turn on my laptop, check my emails to see if I've had any emails from the producer about what specific scenes they might want rewritten, and then I start writing. Because you're your own boss, you don't have someone there going, come on, you've got to do this now. So it works both ways. You've got to be very self-motivated. And then I will basically write for about 4 or 5 hours, grab something to eat, then go back to writing. Sometimes I'm writing to about 2 a.m. So I'll start around 11 a.m. and then basically write to about 2 a.m. Yeah, that's if I'm hired to do some screenwriting for someone else's project. Obviously, there's deadlines. When you first meet them and you're hired for the job and you're hired for the role, or if it's one of your scripts which they've picked up, which they've optioned, initially when they first give you the option, from then onwards, so much of actual writing when you're developing a script is actually done via emails and Skype, because you don't need to be face to face with them. In today's technology, you can go through everything on an email via Skype, especially when if it's someone else's idea. Often I get hired by directors or producers where they've got a concept, but they're not writers. So they've got a great idea, usually directors, yeah, they have brilliant ideas, and then, but they, you know, it's like, I don't know how to get this on screen. And they come to me with like a 2-3 page synopsis, go, here's the story idea, what would you want to do with it? And I then say, this is what I do with it, and they then give you money up front, basically, to write out that concept. It's not an option or anything, because it's their story, it's their concept. And so they then give you development funds up front, usually anywhere between, I write very quickly, I churn out scripts anywhere between 4 to 8 weeks. But that's because I'm very lucky, I'm able to work solely full-time as a writer. Some people, you know, who are juggling other jobs take anywhere from 6 months to like a year to write stuff. Plus I enjoy doing it, so it makes it a lot easier. If you enjoy doing something, it makes it miles easier. So with that, if it's their idea, they will come to you, and you're hired purely as the screenwriter, and they will give you the money up front to write it. I've got to the stage now where I won't take stuff unless I'm interested in it, which sometimes financially, when you're freelance, can be a bit worrying. But what I found was, when I was taking stuff purely for the money, which at times, you know, if this is your full-time job, that's what you have to do at times, I found what I was writing was awful, because I didn't believe in it. And it was mundane, like you said, and so you're writing something you don't really believe in, and unfortunately it shows on the page. It doesn't matter if you're the Paul Schrader, who's the greatest screenwriter ever, you know, writing Taxi Driver, if you're hired to write something which you don't believe in and you're not enjoying writing, it will show on the page, and it will read on it. And I've had producers go, oh, this isn't like the script you wrote, what you showed me that time. And it's like, well, because I believed in that and I don't believe in this, you know, and yeah, it shows. So the last 18 months, I've taken stuff purely where I think, well, that's an interesting concept. I like their idea, I think I can do something with this, and it will challenge me. You kind of reach a certain age where you think, well, if I'm just doing stuff purely for the money, to get paid, you know, to make sure I'm okay for like the next 3-4 months, you know, it doesn't read well, and you might as well just be working in an office, working in computers or something, because you'll make more money more regularly, you know. So yeah, it does show if you're doing something mundane, but yeah, I've stopped doing that now. I just do stuff purely if I think it's a challenge. I would recommend going to university, definitely. I mean, they can't really teach you how to write at university. The only way you can teach yourself, the only way you can learn how to write is by writing. There's a correct way to format stuff, which you can learn in workshops, which you they may have like a semester at university where you have a screenwriter came in. I had that briefly. And I go to unis and colleges and run workshops, for people who are interested in screenwriting. The reason I would say to go to university, from a screenwriting perspective, and also if you wanted to be a director, the best thing to do is actually just go out there, direct stuff, write your own stuff, or get a camera and just film stuff. Having a degree isn't going to make any difference to you getting a job as a screenwriter or a director. It makes no difference at all.
I think the main thing I love films, so for me, that's the main thing. I get to see lots of films before they come out, sometimes up to 3 to 4 months before they come out, because that's when we do the test screenings. So it's just really exciting to see, films, A, for free, and B, to get paid to work on them. It's great. In a way, I don't really have a title. Well, technically I'm a rep, in that although I've been working in the industry since 2005, it's not a full-time job Monday to Friday. Basically, I get called in per project, and that's because I'm a musician as well. So sometimes I have gigs or concerts that I need to do, and I'm not available to work. So for me, it's the perfect job because I can work as much or as little as I want to work. So I don't really have a job title because I do quite a few different jobs. The main job is test screenings. So that is basically, we will go to an area where we're going to show a film. So for example, one of the years not too far from here, Kingston, there's a place called the Rotunda, and they have the View Cinema in there, and we often do test screenings there. So I will spend maybe a week before walking around Kingston and trying to get different types of people to come and see the film. And that can sound easy because you're giving out free cinema tickets, but actually it can be quite tricky because you're trying to get a certain type, a certain demographic. So you might want 25% 15 to 18-year-olds, and then maybe 25% 19 to 25, and so on. The great thing that this job has taught me is not so much just the writer's mind, which a lot of people have, or the director's mind, which again a lot of people have, but that kind of the way that you can market a film. A lot of people don't really know that unless you've worked in the industry, because you can have a great story, you can have great actors, you can have a great producer, director, but then at the end of the day you've got this great movie, hopefully, that you've made, and then how do you get it out there? How do you find the right people that are going to like your film? Over the years, I can't mention client names, but I can say they were like major companies, like major Hollywood companies. So if I did write a script, I would know exactly who to send it to, and there's a good chance that they would at least read it, because they know me. Hopefully they would read it. Whereas an unsolicited script, which just means you've sent it out randomly, they get those all the time. So the chances, even if you've written a really good script, the chances of it being read sometimes can be quite slim. But obviously you've got that contact, so yeah, definitely. That's a tough one because I didn't study media as such. I studied acting, and although I did one module that was on like sound design and things like that, I didn't really study the technical. I think it depends what you're trying to do, really. I think if you want to be a cameraman or something like that, I think then you need to go to like a college where you can learn about that, as well as getting experience. But I think for doing what I'm doing, it's best to go out there and just get the job. We have what we call a field manager, Because basically the company, actually I work for two companies that pretty much do the same thing. There's sort of two sections. You've got the executives, and what they are, they're the market research staff, if you like, and they're sort of like the experts in their field for market research, and that's all the kind of data gathering. Because basically at the end of the day, what we're doing is gathering data of people. You know, whether it's someone's opinion. For example, on the questionnaire, it says, please describe in short words and phrases how you would describe this film to your friends and family. And then people can write quite descriptive. And what we do with all that information is that we literally then collect all that data, and you can actually then have it up on the computer, and you can see at a glance how many people mentioned comedy in the film, how many people mentioned the lead actor in the film, and we send all that back to the producers. Well, I suppose actually, yeah, I mean, there's marketing courses that you can do if you wanted to go in that direction. I actually just got the job through the stage newspaper. I mean, it was literally just there. I'd left drama school, I didn't have a job waiting and ready for me. And in between auditioning for plays and TV and stuff, I needed to earn some money, you know, to pay the rent. So I was just flicking through the stage newspaper and it said, do you love films? I was like, yeah, I do love films. Would you like to work in the film industry? It could be kind of cool. And it just sounded like a really interesting job, and so I applied, and they needed people to go out on the streets and give out their cinema tickets. And that's how it all started, and I've stayed with them since 2005.
Well, my name's Alan Smith, and I'm a lighting cameraman. I started my career at Bournemouth College of Art, so I guess at your age I was at Bournemouth doing film and television. That was 3 years, and then I was lucky to get a job at the BBC, just like that. But it wasn't in the job that I wanted. I got a job as a film examiner in a film library, and I was stuck there for 3 years, but it was the same department as the department I really wanted to get into, which was the film department. So I got there within 3 years and was a trainee assistant film cameraman. And after a year you come out and you are an assistant, full assistant. And I was a full assistant for years, a long time, but I had a great time. So I did 4 years drama, 4 years documentaries, and then I started doing operating on things like Bergeracs and little dramas, and then a lot of documentary, and that was all on film. And then in the 90s, tape came out, videotape, and all the cameramen didn't want to do that. So I volunteered, said, yeah, I'll do it, and got myself a job for 4 years on an arts programme called The Late Show. And that was how I learnt how to mess around with tape. Nobody ever watched the programme, but hey, I didn't care because it went out every night. So I was able to see what I'd shot, and that way you learn. And then from there on I went through to the 2000, and the department closed. And so I ended up going freelance. So I've been freelance ever since, the last 13 years. In Brentford, it was just, what I was doing, I was checking films. I was a film examiner. So you check the negatives, you check the print. This was 16mm film, and you'd check it and you'd run it through for transmission, because in those days a film, when it was put out, was on film, and it went through what's called telecine. It's like a projector. So you had to check there was no muck or filth or anything on there, or scratches, and if there were you'd have to reprint it. So the whole thing got reprinted. So yeah, I did that for 3 years. It's like working in a cutting room. My duties. Yes, your duties as an assistant cameraman were to put the clapperboard on, you'd change all the film, you'd reload, because we had 3 magazines with 400-foot reels in, and each magazine was 10 minutes long. and it was mostly negative that we were shooting, colour neg. That was then my job to log it and send the rushes to the labs at the end of the day to have them processed. And overnight they'd be processed, they'd come back the next day, and somebody else in the department would check that the rushes were good, in focus, not scratched, etc. And also basically you were carrying a lot of the kit, you were packing, you were basically the cameraman's assistant. You'd drive the car, you'd do an awful lot of things, but you wouldn't actually film very often. Well, once you start operating, and once you start doing, obviously tape, we went down to a two-man crew because on film it was three minimum: cameraman, sound recordist, and assistant cameraman. Quite often we'd have a lighting man as well, so that's four. Then there'd be a director and a director's assistant. So quite often your minimum crew on a documentary would be five. And but when we went to tape, it became just cameraman and recordist. So there was one man missing, which was the assistant, which traditionally you then go into being a cameraman. So they didn't need so many assistants once tape had come out. So my most experience came from acting as a cameraman from the 90s onwards. Well, you probably haven't heard of them. I've worked on... Did you ever remember watching The Demon Headmaster? Right, okay. That was a kids' programme. There was Kaching, there was all sorts of kids' programmes I worked on. A lot of major dramas, Smiley People, Bleak House, Bergeracs, tons of documentaries, World About Us, just about everything really. I mean, so there's a lot of stuff. The best one I ever did, I think, was a film about Tchaikovsky, and it was in Russia. And we used 3 tape cameras to do the most fantastic effects of... We put a camera under the tram wheels of one of the trams just to get some really nice stuff, because the music from Tchaikovsky was run underneath these images that I was doing. So that was a really good one. But there's too many. There's loads of really nice films. Yep. The BBC, I'm not that bothered about, frankly. If you guys ever do want a job at the BBC, you'll be working for nothing initially, I warn you. They are an amazing employer, but they don't really want to pay anybody. So at the moment, I would deter you from working for them for nothing, unless you feel that that's fine and you can be supported, but you will be working for nothing for them. I know I work on my own films now. I do my own. In fact, I've just been doing one last week. I've just come back from doing a little film on my own, which was hard work, I can tell you. Having to do the sound, do the camera, do the directing, and I'm trying to get a friend to do the editing because I don't know how to do that. So, yeah. Anything else? Have I got the job? All right, guys, thank you.